Call of Duty Vanguard. Is this the end? Is this the straw that broke the camel's back? The answer is no, because it's a Call of Duty game, and people who are dumb enough, like me, are going to continue to choose to buy the yearly releases for Call of Duty games. But that isn't to say we might be seeing a shift soon, because I think the yearly releases will be coming to an end based on just current trends. A lot of that has to do with the success of games like Rainbow Six, Fortnite, Valorant, and recently being added to that list is Halo Infinite. All these games, if you haven't noticed, are free-to-play games, or ones that are built with long lifespans, ones that you have to buy only once and have that copy for a long period of time. I mean, Rainbow Six Siege is the only one on the list that you have to purchase, and that game came out in 2015. That is just over 6 years ago. And with the addition of micro DLC, operators, and free maps, the game is one of the biggest competitive and non-competitive shooters on the market, leaving Call of Duty, the last of a dying breed, following an outdated business model where every year you have a different Call of Duty, one from a new developer, each with a different story, a new multiplayer, a new co-op mode, and a different period in time where it takes place. Most people buy these games every year because at this point they have to. The new game has all the new content, especially now with Warzone involved. You're at a massive disadvantage if you don't buy the new game at launch before a new Warzone map comes out, because those that did buy the game at launch will have all the guns maxed out by the time a new map comes out, and you, well, the ones that didn't, you're fucked. Which causes a massive disparity between those that did buy the game at launch and those that chose not to buy the game at launch. So, where does that leave Call of Duty Vanguard? Vanguard is in a weird middle ground for me. While I enjoy the game, I've noticed since the Warzone integration over the last 3 Call of Duty releases, it has been severely lacking in a lot of ways. From poor updates, forced DLC, poor servers, which has been an issue since the fucking launch. And finally, the lack of attention to the community in which it needs. Which is why I think this shift is starting to happen. People are becoming fatigued with the yearly releases, so much so people are flocking to the free-to-play version in Warzone because at this point the game has more to offer at launch or on a day-to-day basis. To stay alive, Call of Duty needs to start looking at making Warzone the main thing. I mean, sales are literally down 40% from Cold War, which is even worse because that game in itself is extremely lackluster and highlighted a lot of the major problems. Which brings me back to my earlier point. Games like Rainbow Six, Fortnite, Halo, and really just add any other title that fits in this category here are the future of gaming because you are investing in the future, not a new reskin version every year in which one thing that is the central thing is the big thing, if that makes sense. And if that does make sense, the idea is dumb. You would probably make more money if you just focused on making Warzone the big thing, the thing that people can log into without having to switch from game to game. Streamline it, you morons. But I want to dive into Vanguard because I do also want to review it while I have your attention, if you would. Since it's been a month and the honeymoon phase is pretty much now over for me, really give my full in-depth analysis, score it if that's what's more important to you, even give suggestions for future iterations, which I probably won't do so much on the other sides of other than like multiplayer, and how to improve the franchise as a whole. Starting with the campaign. Call of Duty Vanguard's campaign is in better ways described as a nightmare. If you ask people who swear by it, it's probably one of the best stories they've ever played, and is a good setup to the Warzone story that will be told in later seasons. Which, if you've been listening to anything I've said so far, is really, really bad. Because people who don't own the game have no idea what is happening, who these people are, but I also need to rebuttal and say, in no fucking way does this campaign do anything other than just be a ridiculous, over-the-top Call of Duty Michael Bay lace story where all the characters are obnoxious, their motivations are unclear, and an ending that is literally one of the most laughable pieces of garbage I have ever seen, with the only pro being some of the level design. Some, though, look a little bit out of place, more on that in a second, but keeping in spirit of talking about the campaign, I want to go over 3 major pieces, those being the characters, the level design, and the story, because there's a lot to unpack in this confusing, action-packed Michael Bay Call of Duty over-the-top story, so I'll lead off with the story. Call of Duty Vanguard starts in a very traditional Call of Duty place. What is supposed to be a stealth mission turns into an action-filled adventure where you're tasked with sneaking aboard a German U-boat and stealing stuff. I would say MacGuffin, but I don't know if I can even call it that. The character you were playing as dies, kicking off the long and drawn-out interrogation, which is pretty much the rest of the game. I need to point out, in this U-boat portion of the mission, you learn your character, who I've named for the sake of this video, Glenn, because he gets clubbed in the face and has the ability to pick locks, and was chosen for this mission to do just that, until he was Lucille'd. Oh, I just had a realization that this is probably what they were going for. A guy dressed in 50 shades of leather, your team and friends all lined up, to which one person, being you, Glenn, had his head bashed in. Huh. It's pretty dumb.
Back to it.
For the rest of the story, we see the 4 major characters being interviewed by Charlie from Lost, those 4 characters being Kingsley, Lucas, Wade Jackson, and Paulina, with this guy, Webb, not getting any real character development other than just being a dick and getting shot in the face. Each character during the interrogation sequence experiences a series of flashbacks, which is to buy Wade time to bust them out so they can complete their mission, which doesn't work because why the hell would it? But don't worry, this is all going according to Kingsley's plan outside of Webb getting shot in the face. We come to learn Charlie, the Nazis' boss, head Nazi, has most likely killed Hitler and his supporters to do bad things. Interrogations happen, blah blah blah. Just lots of dumb exposition, to which eventually the team breaks out. Charlie dies, and they need to kill the big bad. Shocking. And honestly, this end battle is a massive highlight. Besides killing the main villain, of course, more on that in a second, but that's because you're able to use each character's ability that you've experienced throughout the game to help accomplish the main goal, in which the game is having you switch out each time one of the 4 major characters completes their specific part. I don't know, it's one of the few parts I actually enjoyed. Sue me. After going through all that, you eventually find the big bad before he gets on his plane, and you end up setting him on fire. Like, I'm not kidding at all. You go through all this shit, this nightmare, to just tell this main villain guy piss off, and then you set him on fire. Ending the game, which leads into the final cutscene where the 4 heroes fly off with a bunch of Nazi treasure, which contains stuff from the zombie story, art, treasure, and stuff, I guess, setting up the Warzone campaign. I don't know, I didn't think it really did. I need to touch on the storyline for Warzone a little bit, though, because this game just barely sets up anything. Like, if you've played Warzone, you've probably gotten a pretty firm grasp on what is happening in the game. Just an FYI, the end scene also leads to the funniest line in the entire game.
We were the Vanguard.
Which is basically like Will Smith's line.
We're some kind of suicide squad.
I don't know, man. I audibly laughed when they said this because it basically felt like they weren't trying to meme, but now it's kind of like a meme. It felt so silly and out of place. The characters in Vanguard are a mixed bag. Some I liked, some I hated, some were laughable, and others were just underutilized. Honestly, Kingsley, Paulina, and Lucas were easily my favorite characters. Kingsley just offers a great story by asserting himself as a leader of a down-and-out group of soldiers in order to save the lives of those who were about to storm the beaches. Paulina, because while her missions were extremely bland, I actually felt her quest for revenge was actually believable and actually made me as a player empathize with her. And Lucas, who is just great because he's the most generic Call of Duty character in the game who loves explosions and telling his commander to piss off. And did I say explosions? Let's be honest, how many of us in our everyday life know our own bosses are making dumb decisions and we want to tell them to piss off because we know we can do it better and save the company something, at least in the end? Lucas is that guy. Where the game falls short is for characters like Wade. He's just such a douche that I feel like the developers and the writers work so hard to make him cool and likable, but he's just a douche. He's just an egotistical pilot bro who doesn't like to follow orders because he feels like he knows better, but not in the way that Lucas does. He's just a douche. Oddly enough, though, he doesn't know better than anyone. Another oddity is that it felt that at the end of his story through the interrogation, he actually changed, but you get a very inconsistent character. Like, a lot of the main characters don't trust him, which is weird. Webb is far and away the most useless character in the game. During Kingsley's missions, Webb is very standoffish, viewing Kingsley's reasoning to attack versus stay put when pushing the bunkers too costly, viewing the cost of his own men too high for those who will probably be dead before they even get on the beach. Eventually, through the power of a near-death experience, he seemed to respect Kingsley and side with him in the early part of the interrogation storyline. Yet, we don't see it for long because he's just shot in the face. As a sort of way to tell the player that Nazi Charlie isn't messing around, even though the game does a very poor job telling us that. Like, I say that because Nazi Charlie has a weird storyline. As an interrogator, he is harsh and prying for answers as to what the team is actually doing there, but when outside of the interrogations, I wasn't sure if he was sympathetic towards them because even he seemed to know what was happening was wrong, and yet he does this. To put it bluntly, the characters in this game have the worst writing ever, because basically all of them seem to have weird motivations, and also their storylines don't really line up with one another or with their eventual outcome. It's just not great, especially, again, that of Nazi Charlie, whose motivations itself don't seem to line up with what we saw at the very end. The level design. I want to make this quick, but the level design is very spotty, with a lot of them feeling unfinished. I pointed this out in the D-Day mission where I said the farm location was missing set pieces, and I was told it was intentional. This isn't intentional. Even if it was, it looks horrible, as if the level designer quit halfway through and everyone around him just said, yeah, that's good enough. Some levels are interesting. For instance, a lot of the Pacific missions are interesting, regardless of how much I hate the actual story that goes into them. You get to meet some interesting characters, fly a plane, and play hide and seek, whereas missions like this make you confused at how they even ended up this way. A lot of levels also just feel like they have a lot of random stuff dumped into them. For instance, a lot of the Paulina missions have so much random shit in it for her to hide around. It just makes you wonder if most of it was even necessary to begin with. I mean, the levels are extremely confusing. Zombies. Zombies in Vanguard is easily the worst in the franchise. It just feels so watered down, so easy, so vanilla. Basically, if you've played any Call of Duty since the inclusion of zombies in Call of Duty World at War, you know to expect a few things. Round-based gameplay, interesting characters, fun Easter eggs you can do with your friends, and adrenaline-inducing games. Honestly, it's not a surprise that zombies in this game is that bad. After playing Cold War Zombies, it felt like just a massive step back for the franchise. While this, well, it feels like a massive step back off a cliff into a river in which that river is full of waterfalls. I'm saying it's bad. The way this Zombies works is that you still, I think, have round-based gameplay. I say I think because I'm not fully sure if that round-based counter is from killing the max amount of zombies per round or from completing objectives, or both. It's hard to fully understand, which, I mean, if I played a little bit more, I would probably grasp what it is, but there's nothing really keeping me in the game. Gameplay also includes portals being scattered around the map, which takes you to various locations where you complete objectives ranging from surviving, collecting runes, or even guiding whatever this thing is to this random part of the map, because that's what the game wants you to do. After completing these, you unlock more parts of the map, but my favorite part of this map is the fact it is literally the map Red Star. I'm not kidding. The developers literally just took a map, added fire, some fog, and a pack-a-punch, and said, this is exactly what the player base deserved. Like, if I needed anything to point to in order for you to understand how lazy most of this game is, it's this. It's the only map in the game at launch for zombies. I don't even know if one has come out since then, nor do I care, because the zombies isn't worth playing. It's too easy. You start with pretty much everything right at the start. Yeah, you can unlock camos and other junk, but is it really all worth it? At least Cold War Zombies was actually trying to be difficult. This felt like it was made in a few days. This is the equivalent to copy my homework the teacher won't notice. And before you say, well, COVID ruined it, shut up. Don't give them that excuse. This is lazy, and you know it, and I know it. Hell, the developer probably knows it. If it's not ready for release, then just delay it. That's what Halo's doing with Forge in their co-op mode. Literally just knock off $10 off the price tag if you have to, or maybe just give the first season of the Battle Pass for free. It's only $10 anyway. It's not like you're not going to make all your money back anyway, so why not just do that? I did read an article, though, from early November, that traditional zombies could be back, which is nice to hear because, like I said, the way zombies is being handled now is very bad. It has such a weird emphasis on this whole thing about the ether as a storyline, instead of just having, the story be a part of the zombies instead of the zombies being the story. I feel like that's something they should kind of work out, because it really worked out in earlier iterations of zombies. Multiplayer. Let's be real, you didn't buy Vanguard for the story, and I doubt you bought it only for the zombies. And if you did, boy, you got screwed. Being completely honest, not a lot of my opinions have changed on the multiplayer since my last video talking about it. I truly believe gameplay alone, this is the best game we've had in a long time. Some of it's probably because it's done by accident, and a lot of it's because a massive portion of this game is just copied from Modern Warfare 2019. Which isn't bad. While Modern Warfare, for all intents and purposes, is a very flawed game, it actually succeeded where it needed to. I don't think Activision fully understands how, because back-to-back years, they're struggling to capitalize on what made it successful. Which I'll save for a potential Modern Warfare review. Let me reel this back into being about Vanguard. The game shipped in a pretty good state, main concerns being glitches, lag, and weapon balance, all of which were things I pointed out in my beta video. Spoiler alert, none of it got fixed. Actually, in some cases, it got worse, which is where my main concerns with the multiplayer lie. One thing I've noticed is the more recent microtransaction-heavy Call of Duty games is that the developers are very slow, probably slower than sloths working at the DMV to fix just about anything. For example, a video I made recently knocked the developers for the amount of lag currently in the game. And this isn't something that's a new problem for the franchise. The game at the time of writing this, December 14th, is nearly unplayable. How the fuck is this even a thing? How is it even a problem? It's been over a month since the game is shipped, and yet I can access and purchase items from the store with ease. It's as if the developers don't care at all. That might be a harsh accusation to make in itself because I think some of them do actually care. It's the higher-ups calling all the shots that I don't think care at all. Another thing is the obvious weapon balance. I understand I'm alone on this, but I hate the gunsmith. There's too many variables for a balanced multiplayer experience. I think as it stands, there's close to 40 plus attachments per weapon. That's insane. What's more insane is that each one of them have a way of affecting each gun in the way it plays, handles, and looks. Cosmetically, I love Gunsmith. You can literally make some of the coolest weapons in the game, but on the same token, you can make some weapons downright godly. I mentioned this before in another video as well. The Rat-a-tat variant that I got from just playing the beta is insane. I don't even have to do anything to it. The developers just did it for me. It's the fact that someone could just create this in general that makes it scary. But that involves going through 40 plus attachments. That's too much time and too much effort to create one of these things. It should just be a very simple, quick add and drop. Another thing I might be alone on is the cosmetics. Weapon variants are dumb. Realistically, you should be able to equip a skin that includes every attachment and every single part of the gun. Don't get me wrong, some of the variants actually look cool, but are pointless because some of them are just terrible, and I'm forced to fix them to my playstyle, which makes my purchase of that variant pointless. Hashtag bring back weapon skins. My last criticism is this. For the love of God, stop remaking or remastering maps as frequently as you do. Call of Duty is super reliant on using its past successes to help the current age of Call of Duty. Yet the maps they release alongside the remasters are terrible, as if the developers don't understand what made these maps so successful, so they keep releasing them to compensate for their inability to make good maps. But why not just look at the maps to get yourselves a better understanding of what made the maps so beloved? Just a thought. Another thing is the hit registration is extremely inconsistent, with some shots very clearly hitting the target, but the game says, nope, sorry, better luck next time, can't pass go, get lost, and the fact that this hasn't been addressed yet is pretty remarkable. Some positives. Some pros I want to go over. As a naysayer of the destructible cover, I must say it corrects the door issue. Granted, both destructible cover and doors could just not be in the game at all, but I'll give you a gold star for this one. Also, the weird blind fire feature is kind of helpful in some situations, more than I thought it would be. Another thing I found as a major highlight, and something I've praised up and down, is the amount of content the game had at launch. The game had at least, 20 maps with 38 weapons. It is impressive that the developers actually listened and took the time to add more content. Whether it's for better or worse is up to you, but you kind of get my point. I also feel the need to mention that Champion Hill was a nice addition to the game, more so than I kind of thought. It brings that adrenaline-pumping action from being in the top 5 in Warzone to a scaled-down version of multiplayer in a competitive format. I do have a quick couple things I just want to segment out, just starting with the graphics. I felt like the graphics deserved its own spotlight because a lot of people have said that this game is just a literal carbon copy of Modern Warfare 2019. To which I say, yeah, that's kind of the point. Graphically, this and Modern Warfare 2019 were miles ahead of Cold War. Plus, I appreciate the consistency in a franchise that severely lacks that. I will say that the game does need to add a little bit more visibility because it's nearly impossible to see people at long distances, which makes for some extremely frustrating multiplayer matches on pretty much most maps. So yeah, complain about the visibility issues, not the fact that the franchise is actually trying to do something more consistent. Operators. Operators in Call of Duty have been a great replacement for specialists we saw in previous games. They aren't game-breaking like their predecessors, and they add more value to the story as well. My biggest gripe is that they aren't divided into Axis and Ally factions, which makes it a crapshoot to figure out who is on your team in a match. So if the method of we're all Vanguard could be avoided in the multiplayer, that'd be a lot better. I appreciate the operator videos, by the way, because it adds a bit of storytelling to each character, and if you think to say anyone outside of Shignori is the best character, well, you're wrong. Also, how the fuck is this guy alive? Spoilers for the Season 1, but apparently this guy who got killed in the game is miraculously alive. Like, what? Warzone. Warzone is pretty rough. Pretty much anything I said in this video holds up, but I will repeat it for those who didn't watch it. The map is pretty underwhelming, with most of the map being empty and making it a nightmare to navigate, with lag, weapon balance being at the forefront of the issues, but that's pretty much all I've noticed in Warzone so far. I think it'll probably get maybe better since it's kind of the big deal for Call of Duty, but these are things I just kind of noticed at the start. Before I give my opinion, followed by the conclusion to the longest video I've ever done on my channel, ever, I ask a couple things. If you enjoyed the video at all, maybe leave a like, subscribe, and let me know if you'd like to see me do more videos like this, because surprisingly, I enjoyed doing this. It felt more therapeutic because I think it might have been a Call of Duty game, but I'll happily do this for other games, and maybe you can give a suggestion to what you want me to do next. My opinion. Vanguard is a very flawed game. That's something I kind of hinted towards or directly said throughout the video. And the major problem I see is the developer's inability to quickly and effectively address issues within the game, even lacking transparency with the player base. While sometimes I guess they do communicate with the community, a lot of it just feels very tongue-in-cheek. For instance, the possible revival of old school zombies, as I mentioned earlier. Being honest here, I doubt that's going to happen, at least not anytime soon. But if there's anyone at fault for this nightmare, this travesty, it's the community, the gamer, you, the viewer. The one thing that drives me insane hearing is, eventually it will get better. Why? Why is that the mentality with games like Vanguard or Battlefield? You paid $70 for this, and if not you, but your parents, then that's even worse. This game, this is robbery. In no way is Call of Duty Vanguard worth anything more than $50, and that is pushing it. If this were, I don't know, the early 2010s or earlier, a game like this would have been panned and the developer would have been stuck, forced to win back the good favor of the player base, yet they don't need to do that, because they can ship a terrible product with free DLC, a battle pass, and patch the issues along the way, instead of just release a quality game, because no one will say anything. Gamers are too complacent. Don't be. These companies are making billions of dollars a year because you don't want to speak up and explain the issues. You don't need to flock to Twitter, Facebook, or even YouTube comment sections and send death threats or even throw a virtual temper tantrum. Literally explain the issue. Make a video, get it attention. If you're going to just be a dick, and being honest, I'm a bit aware that I was a few times in this video, the developers just won't care. A quick message to community managers for these developers, because I feel like I've seen a lot of them get a lot of real hate over the last couple games. By some weird reason, if you're watching this random video in which I've probably just dropped a massive load on your game, a game that you probably spent a lot of your time on, hello, welcome. You need to understand your role in this. I understand it's very frustrating, your job probably kind of sucks, but you are literally the voice for the voiceless in meeting rooms that probably contain ideas the community would be very against, and you are the direct contact to that. Yes, the Call of Duty community is toxic, so is pretty much any dedicated fan base. But with a game like Call of Duty, you have a franchise that has wronged the community time and time again, that maybe people are just a little jilted. Don't block people for speaking up. Understand that why they're probably annoyed. That is your role. That is the role of any community manager. Thank you, and enjoy your day. But that is my stance. Don't be complacent with a bad game. Give your own views. Maybe you can change something, because you as a consumer have that ability more so than you think. Also, I'm not saying just don't buy the game at all, but what I'm saying is maybe you don't need to buy that $30 skin, because money talks. And if the community managers have their hands tied, not purchasing stupid skins is the way for the developers to at least take that step back and figure out why. Because it has happened in the past with Call of Duty. Look at the loot box system. It is no longer available because people weren't buying the game. Again, you don't need to not buy the game, just maybe rethink some of your in-game purchases. Conclusion. Vanguard isn't bad, but it's very flawed. The multiplayer is fun when it actually works. The campaign is dumb fun, but the zombies is literally the worst it has ever been. It belongs in the garbage, and you can't even debate that. I want to bring this video back to a point I made very early on in the video. Call of Duty needs to start rethinking its business model. The yearly releases just isn't what it used to be. Developers don't have the time they need, which causes them to release things like this. Look at Warzone. Warzone is what put Call of Duty back on the map. Not Modern Warfare 2019, not Black Ops Cold War, and definitely not Vanguard. Maybe consider integrating all your multiplayer features into Warzone. Make it one big free-to-play game. That's what people were drawn to in the first place with Warzone. Put a couple studios on it and have them work on it, and then utilize the other studios for new projects, other possible profitable projects. The developers you have behind these games are talented, it's just never fully realized. I know a few years ago, Treyarch tried to make Black Ops 4 a sort of Overwatch clone. Maybe it's time to revisit that. My point is, don't waste an opportunity to keep Call of Duty on a track of profitability. Even if it matters that much, you can make a yearly campaign setting up the next setting within Warzone, as you apparently did with Vanguard, which I still didn't see. Again, Vanguard's a flawed game, just full of development oversight. And in its current state, it's a measly 6.1 out of 10. Now that that's finally over, what do you think of Call of Duty Vanguard? Is my score accurate? Is there anything I missed? Let me know in the comments section. Again, I want to thank you for taking your precious time to watch me, a guy with a microphone, review Call of Duty Vanguard, and give his suggestions as to where the Call of Duty developers should take the franchise, but also just kind of bitch a little bit about some of the issues that I feel like aren't getting patched or getting addressed in the game. So I do appreciate that. Well, that's over. Bye.